아이고야, 안녕하세요. 매일매일 운동하기를 실천하고 있는 동타 왕코입니다. 운동해야지. 오늘은 수요일, 맞죠? 4월 14일 블랙데이입니다. 짜장면 드셨나요? 전 점심에 회사에서 메뉴로 짜장면이 나와서 짜장면을 먹었죠. 날씨가 춥다고 했는데 생각보다 그렇게 안 추웠어요. 피곤합니다. 피곤하지만 스트레칭 좀 하고 팔굽혀펴기만 하겠습니다. 아직도 허리에 통증이 살짝 있어요. 아주 조금. 요즘에 약간 그 중량물 드는 업무는 크게 안 하고 많이 안 해요. 하긴 하지만 그래도. 그래서 조금만 더 허리를 보호하면서 운동을 하면은 그 이전으로 돌아갈 수 있을 것 같습니다. 일단 운동하겠습니다. 운동 할 땐 CNN. 배 아파. 아유.
This is the 100 Club, our look at companies that are 100 years old or older.
One of our most popular teas is the famous Earl Grey blend.
It's the drink that built a nation. The best tea may be produced in China or India, but there are few countries which enjoy a nice cuppa more than England. And in London, there's one company which has been brewing up for more than 300 years.
With or without milk, it's your cup of tea. You must drink it the way you like it. And yes, a day without Earl Grey is not a good day. The company started when Thomas Twining bought an existing London coffee house. Within the city of London, there were over 2,000 coffee houses, so intense competition. So having trained in tea, he introduced fine quality teas to his coffee house as a point of difference.
I'm Selena Wang in Hong Kong, and this is CNN.
A really significant moment about to happen today. President Biden will announce this afternoon his plans to withdraw all U.S. troops from Afghanistan by September 11th, thus ending America's longest-running war. Our Nick Payton-Walsh is live in Kabul with an exclusive look at how the Taliban will run the country as it gains power. Nick.
Poppy, it will be important to hear the precise details from President Biden later on today, but already his officials are saying this withdrawal is not conditions-based. Essentially, it's going to happen whatever. And that sends an important signal to Americans who probably don't want to see the 20th anniversary of America being in Afghanistan later on this year, to the Taliban, who are gaining on the ground here, but keep saying they're not interested in the Istanbul Peace Summit that President Biden has also called. Maybe the idea of a withdrawal will get them closer to the negotiating table, and it'll also impact many Afghans deeply concerned about what may happen if American forces, who often are holding back Taliban advancing on key towns, are no longer here. We've been finding out, though, what life is like under places where the Taliban have been in control for a number of years. And one particular town you may have heard of, where many Americans fought and some died, Musa in southern Helmand. Now America is leaving Afghanistan after nearly 2 decades of treasure lost. What world does the US leave behind for ordinary Afghans? Taliban stronghold Musa is where many American and British soldiers died. Now it's a snapshot of how the Taliban will run Afghanistan. We asked 6 men living there, 2 on camera, anonymously in safety, what it's like. In short, bleak for women, a few smartphones, but for all, Taliban justice and Taliban taxes.
There are consequences. If you don't pay, they beat you or imprison you.
A broadly medieval society then, considering all the billions spent, except just recently with the odd smartphone allowed. That's how we got pictures of the streets. Taliban roamed the market US Marines once patrolled 10 years ago. The Americans were based here, a location you can see on these satellite images, not far from the empty shop where the Taliban have their temporary courts, which they call the Room, dispensing swift, brutal justice.
Punishments depend on what the other side wants. If the plaintiff forgives a murderer, the court might not give a death sentence. But if the relatives demand it, they may. For example, around 4 years back, 3 thieves were hanged to death from the electricity pole on the road out of town for people to see. They had been arrested a few times for robbery, but they did not stop.
This footage from a drive around town heads out to the refugee camps by the river from where US Marines used to get shot at, and it's clear few women are allowed on the streets. They still don't go to school. Nobody even dares ask about that, we're told. But most men we asked said women had it good. This is what they meant.
They are not allowed to do business outside their house. When they go out, they need to dress according to Sharia law. So for them, it's more important to take care of their homes than working outside.
Women can also get a rough justice in this backward world.
One woman pleaded guilty for adultery and she has been imprisoned for the last 5 years now. No one knows what will happen to her in the end. The man caught with her was killed by his in-laws for bringing shame to his marriage.
Fighting is rare here now, and the Americans must just watch from jets or drones above. In fact, we were told the Taliban only allowed some smartphones in Musa Qala because peace talks meant that US airstrikes there had slowed down. The Americans had been using smartphones to track Taliban fighters. Taliban rule in these streets means they set taxes from opium harvests or shops, we were told, or ask for bread or clothes for their fighters when in need. But some said feuds between Taliban groups mean people can pay more than once.
Many people have been taken to the Taliban room, locked up for a night or two, or have been beaten up. There are different groups of Taliban. It would be better to have a single authorized official getting taxed, but every group tries to take tax for their own pockets. That's one problem for people now.
Life then goes on, much as it did before the Taliban were removed from power after 9/11, with just a lot of Americans and Afghans lost in the battle in between. So you might ask yourself, if the Taliban have control like that in parts of rural Afghanistan, and it's a pretty common picture apart from major cities like this, Kabul, now millions strong, why would they want peace talks? Well, there are some who say, actually, there are Taliban who feel maybe being part of a transitional legitimate government will help one important thing keep coming, and that's international aid. Because if you run the country, you have to make sure it's fed and the lights stay on. That's already a problem with all the international aid coming into the country now. That's one key thing that may influence the months ahead. Poppy?
Nick, back 20 years ago in 2001, then President Bush said in his remarks to the country that the U.S. condemns the Taliban. He said repeatedly their regime committing murder. And just last month, 124 civilians died in Afghanistan. I think the question is the U.S. completely pulls out, you know, what has been accomplished?
Yeah, I mean, look, Al-Qaeda, in the way that they existed in 2001, have been defeated symbolically, but obviously that defeat symbolically occurred in Pakistan, where Osama bin Laden was killed. Right now, the US Treasury Department, back on January the 4th, issued a statement saying that Al-Qaeda are growing in strength here, working with the Taliban. So there's an enormous question mark as to whether or not there'll be a safe haven here when the US troops finally withdraw. You can see in the city around me here, Kabul, it used to be hundreds of thousands strong when the Americans first came here. Now there are millions living here. Billions have been sunk into this this country. It's fueled corruption, it's fueled some advances too, but it's now left the country supercharged, frankly, with weapons and aggressions between different factions here. When America leaves, it's not the end of the war, it's the beginning of a new phase of a conflict that's frankly gone on for decades for many Afghans here, Poppy.
Nick Payton-Walsh, live for us in Kabul this morning. Thank you so much for that reporting. Of the nearly 7 million Johnson & Johnson COVID vaccines that have been administered here in the United States, only 6 people have experienced the rare but severe blood clots. A question this morning, did the administration pull that vaccine too quickly? What will this mean for vaccine hesitancy? Dr. Anthony Fauci is here with us next.
Road to the Future, in association with VinFast, Boundless Together.
At St Pancras International Station in London, passenger numbers have plummeted during the pandemic. But in the hope of bringing back public confidence, we have a system in place which monitors social distancing and passenger flow using a digital twin of the station.
We first make a copy of the physical building by scanning the building, and from that we plan a monitoring infrastructure that counts and tracks people locally. That information is then stored on our servers, and our algorithm process that information. The pandemic has very much changed the problem that the operators have to deal with. It is not so much overcapacity or large number of people using an asset. It's about bringing customer back to the infrastructure, building back confidence.
Vision is infinite imagination. It's a belief in better, smarter, more sustainable. VinFast's vision goes beyond 4 wheels, beyond expected, beyond belief. It's boundless, borderless. A future powered by all of us. VinFast, boundless together.
Businesses are transforming, preparing for a future where innovation will change the way we live and work.
It's going to be, and it is, the most significant development in photovoltaics in 65 years.
It is an essential building block in providing clean and affordable drinking water.
Explore the future of business. Go to cnn.com/business evolve. In association with Vodafone Business.
When news happens anywhere in the world, CNN is there.
We've all been detained by the Russian authorities.
No other journalists have been allowed into Myanmar since this coup happened.
It's easy to spot ambulances like this one racing all over the city, going on call after call.
It's been 10 years of unimaginable horrors.
Do you know who these children are? Have you seen them before?
They need urgent support, urgent help.
We will tell the world your story.
President authored 7 books and has an independent voice that resonates.
What happened to when we were united against a common enemy?
He's raw, unique, and one of America's most important talk show hosts. Watch Smirconish, Saturday on CNN.
This is CNN.
CDC's Vaccine Advisory Committee will hold an emergency meeting today to discuss whether and how use of Johnson & Johnson's coronavirus vaccine should continue in the United States. This after 6 women out of the nearly 7 million Americans who've received the shot reported a rare and severe type of blood clot. Joining me now is Dr. Anthony Fauci. He is President Biden's chief medical advisor on the pandemic. Dr. Fauci, as always, great to have you here. 6 cases out of 7 million doses. That is literally less than 1 in a million. Why is that enough to justify a pause?
Well, what the CDC and the FDA wanted to do is they were accumulating a recognition of the cases. First 1, 2, then 3. When they got to 6, they decided, let's just pause. Very likely quite temporary, but just pause to take a good look at this and maybe get some more details and see if, in fact, that there are others, perhaps many others. And then we'll find out what we're going to do and then move on from there. So one was a caution from regard to the safety itself. But there's also another issue involved. If there are women out there who have been vaccinated and who get this syndrome, this very serious syndrome, rare albeit, if they did, we wanted to make the doctors out there who know about this to make sure they treat the person correctly, because the standard way, John, that you treat clots is by an anticoagulant called heparin. Heparin is contraindicated in this situation and might make matters worse. So there's a twofold reason. One, for an abundance of caution of safety, take a quick look, get more details, but also a heads up to the physicians out there that if you see these kinds of cases, don't treat them with heparin. There are other modalities of treatment that could be used.
You said to look and see if there are more, maybe many more cases. Do you have any reason to believe that there are many more cases?
No, John, I don't. I'm just saying that's one of the reasons, because when you put a pause, you want to look around and say, maybe there are others that have been reported and we don't know about it. So let's take a quick look, get everybody to get a heads up and alert to it, and then see if there are any other cases.
Let me read you what Governor Chris Sununu of New Hampshire said. He was one of the governors on this call getting the explanation yesterday morning. He said, it's very hard as governors to go out and explain that we're pausing based on something that is, as according to Dr. Fauci, a 1 in a million occurrence. What has to be appreciated is the ability for governors to reinstill confidence after something like this is 100 times harder than the pause is in the first place. Your reaction?
John, you can take that on the other side of that coin, because I know when I go out there and talk to people about hesitancy, the overwhelming reason for that is a concern about safety. So if there is a concern about a hesitancy out there, the fact that this was done would, in my mind, underscore and confirm how seriously we take safety, even though it's a very rare event. So if anybody's got a doubt that, they may not be taking safety very seriously, I think this is an affirmation that safety is a primary consideration when it comes to the FDA and the CDC. That's why it was done, and that's why it's a pause. It isn't a cancellation, it's a pause.
Days, weeks, months?
You know, speaking to the CDC and the FDA, there's very likely going to be more days to weeks than weeks to months. I doubt very seriously if we're talking about weeks to months.
You know that there is this issue of vaccine hesitancy out there, broadly speaking, not just about Johnson & Johnson, but about vaccines in general. One of the reasons is some of the things people say. And last night, I want to read you, I don't want to play it because I'm not sure that helps the cause here of saving lives, something that TV personality Tucker Carlson said on TV about vaccines in general. He said, if vaccines are effective, there's no reason for people who have received the vaccine to wear masks or avoid physical contact. So maybe it doesn't work. And they're simply not telling you that. Let me repeat that again. So maybe it doesn't work, and they're simply not telling you that. What do you have to say to Tucker Carlson?
Yeah. That's just a typical crazy conspiracy theory. Why would we not tell people if it doesn't work? Look at the data. The data are overwhelming. In the 3 vaccines that have been approved for use in an emergency use authorization, the J&J, the Pfizer, and the Moderna, you had 30,000, 44,000, and 40,000 people in a clinical trial with an overwhelming signal of efficacy. So I don't have any idea what he's talking about.
How dangerous is it for a TV personality like that who does have an audience of millions to speculate about something like that?
Well, it's certainly not helpful to the public health of this nation or even globally. You know, I don't want to get into arguments about Tucker Carlson, but to me, it's just, you know, it's counter to what we were trying to accomplish to protect the safety and the health of the American public.
One of the things, there's different levels of vaccine hesitancy, right? There are anti-vaxxers, and then there are people, one attitude some people have is a wait-and-see approach. I want to wait and see what happens as more and more people get the vaccine. What's your message overall, and generally speaking, to the wait-and-see people with the vaccine?
Man, you know, it's understandable why people do that. I mean, you don't want to be pejorative against them. I mean, that's a natural instinct of wanting to wait and see. But what you tell people, let's look at the data, okay? What we have right now, we have over 120, close to 130 million people have already received at least one dose of this. I mean, that's a lot of people. I mean, how long do you want to wait and see? I mean, you have almost half the country has received at least one dose. So I think we've had enough wait and see. Let's do it.
3.4 million people a day on average now, which is a remarkable number, an astounding number, which should be celebrated. Just one last question, just on some of the data we're seeing, and this is an idea that Sanjay, Dr. Sanjay could have put in my ear. We are seeing cases rise now, nearly 80,000 cases a day now, which I know you think is a number that's way too high. Hospitalizations are rising a little bit, but flat to up a little bit, but deaths continue to fall in the United States. And one of the things that Sanjay said is, one of the things we don't know, is it possible that yes, cases may still rise a little bit, hospitalizations even too, but the number of deaths will continue to drop because the most vulnerable population has been vaccinated. Is it possible we will continue to see a drop in deaths no matter what happens with cases?
Yeah, I think, as usual, Sanjay is right on the money. I think that's exactly what's going to happen. Because, you know, if you look at the people who are most vulnerable to death, namely the elderly, we know that from experience now over greater than a year. There's more than 76% of people over 65 who have been vaccinated. So, I mean, there you have it. The most vulnerable, to the extent of the relative proportion, are protected. So even though you're seeing people infected, because there's, as you know, a race, as I've said so many times, John, a race between getting as many people vaccinated as possible, with the virus itself surging or trying to surge. You know, it's creeping up around 80,000. That's a very high number, 80,000 per day. As we get more and more people, that 3 to 4 million people per day vaccinated, the vaccine component of this race is going to get stronger and stronger, and then you're going to start to see the cases come down.
Dr. Anthony Fauci, thank you very much for being with us this morning.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me.
All right, coming up, a major development in the investigation into embattled Congressman Matt Gaetz. Brand new CNN reporting about late-night drug-fueled parties the congressman allegedly attended. Details next.
At Sproxel, we connect consumers with genuine product manufacturers by placing a unique code on each product that rolls off the factory line, that a consumer can use your cell phone to verify and make sure that what they pull off the shelf and buy actually came from the manufacturer as indicated on the packaging. And so by using serialization and the vast network of mobile devices, we're able to connect brands and consumers directly to make sure that consumers are not ripped off. The face of the company has changed significantly. When we started off, we had most of our staff here in the US, and today our workforce is much larger overseas than it is here in the US, because we've been able to team up and find brilliant people locally who are moving the front lines so deeper into the territory of counterfeiters in those markets.
curiosity. This is CNN 10. My name is Carl Zeus. I'll be your explainer-in-chief. Global news. International relations are the key factors. Relevant stories. Everyday people whose action is changing their community. Complex issues explained. We're going back to the future. And 10-second trivia. You get a perfect 10 out of 10. All in 10 minutes. Stream at youtube.com/CNN10.
Business never sleeps. As the sun sets in Seoul and Shanghai, deals are signed in Dubai, and Europe is already in play. New York prepares to make its first move. I'm Julia Chatterley, journalist, global market analyst, and host of CNN's newest business show, First Move. Join me in the financial capital of the world for market-moving perspective on the news influencing global politics, culture, and finance. I'll speak to newsmakers, takers, and the ultimate game changers. Bold moves, big deals, winning trades. It's all right here. Make CNN your first move.
First Move with Julia Chatterley. Tonight on CNN.
This is CNN. More people get their news from CNN than any other news source.
I'm Paula Hancock's in the DMZ between North and South Korea.
In Shanghai, China.
In New Delhi, in Beirut,
In Riyadh.
in Somaliland, Moscow, and Downing Street.
In Sao Paulo, Brazil.
I'm Dr. Sanjay Gupta in Atlanta. This is CNN.
Well, new developments this morning could spell quite a bit of trouble for Republican Congressman Matt Gaetz. A source tells CNN that Gaetz's indicted friend, Joel Greenberg, has been cooperating with the Fed since last year. Greenberg faces dozens of counts, including sex trafficking of a minor. The New York Times reports the information includes details about encounters he and Gaetz had with women who were given cash or gifts for sex. And this morning, CNN has brand new reporting about late-night house parties allegedly attended by these women and Gaetz and what happened there. Our Paula Reed joins us more with these stunning details. Paula, this is your reporting. What can you share?
Good morning, Poppy. Well, CNN spoke directly with two women who attended these parties with Congressman Gaetz and others, and the behavior of the congressman and other high-powered men, along with a pattern of digital payments, could be of interest to the Justice Department as part of its probe of Gaetz that includes allegations of sex trafficking and prostitution. And we've learned these parties were held at a house in a gated community in suburban Orlando. Women we spoke with said when some of the women arrived, there were rules. For example, the first thing some of them were asked to do was put away their cell phones. Now, one of the women told us the attendees included a who's who of local Republican officials and often included Congressman Gaetz, and these men just did not want their activities at these parties being documented. Now, we're told people at these parties were often dressed up, coming directly from a political event, and we're told folks mingled and shared drugs, including cocaine and ecstasy. One of the women said that she saw Congressman Gaetz take a pill she believed was a recreational drug. Now, some of the people at these parties also had sex. According to receipts reviewed by CNN, Gaetz and his associate Joel Greenberg used digital payment apps to send hundreds of dollars to at least one woman who attended these parties. Now, these receipts, viewed by CNN, report payments that took place between 2018 and 2019 and include at least one that indicated in its label that it was to compensate for travel. Now, another woman we spoke with said she received money from Greenberg for some of these parties, but she said she never received any payment directly from Gaetz. Now, it's also notable that both of the women we spoke with say they never saw anyone at any of these parties who appeared to be underage.
In important detail, but this is what makes the Greenberg plea so important, right? What is he going to say that his attorney indicated would make Congress